Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday, the 15th of March 2023. First item on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies for absence, Mr Bradbury?
Good morning, Leader. I'm not in receipt of any apologies.
Item 2, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Are there any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody is indicating. Third item on the agenda is Leader's Update. Colleagues, last week's sudden cold snap and snow led to challenging conditions in many parts of the country, especially in the moorlands. Thank you to our fantastic gritting crews who were out round the clock to keep our main roads moving safely. A number of motorists had to be rescued from snowdrifts near Leek. A reminder to us all that in those conditions to only travel if absolutely essential, and to make sure you go armed with food, water, warm clothing, a fully charged mobile, and we haven't got my script here, a spade or a shovel. The same crews who are out gritting will now be turning their attention to fixing roads, which I'm sure many people will be delighted to hear, which do take a hammering during the freezing weather, and I am delighted we can talk more about additional highways investment later in the meeting with Councillor Williams. Elsewhere, earlier this month, Government announced a national plan and funding to improve support for children with special educational needs and disabilities. The news was very welcome. Here in Staffordshire, we're investing to recruit 10 more educational psychologists, and there will be a 25% increase in the specialist staff we employ to work with SEND children and their families. Educational psychologists make a unique contribution to the well-being of children and young people, and their expertise helps every child in the county to reach their full potential. And we're blessed to have Councillor Price as the portfolio holder, who I know has a very special interest and personal connection to special educational needs and is driving hard to make sure that that service improves dramatically. Continuing on the education theme, we informed more than 9 out of 10 parents that their child would receive a place at their preferred secondary school next year. We are consistently well above the national average for first preferences, despite ever-rising demand. And this is testament to the tireless efforts of our admissions team who process the applications. And I'm extremely grateful to the admissions teams. They get this bombarded with all the applications and then very quickly have to make these decisions. And what a brilliant effort they do put in for us. As well as our forward planning and investment in schools to make sure that we provide the right number of school places in the right areas for Staffordshire children. In this county, we have a packed learning, training and skills agenda to support people to realise their aspirations. This includes lots of help for people starting their own businesses. Our Staffordshire Means Back to Business scheme, a partnership with district and borough councils, provides more support to more small businesses quicker than ever before. Our libraries now all have Staffordshire Startup Hub, where people can access self-employment resources including books, fact sheets, business plan templates and information. The latest figures show that new business numbers in Staffordshire have improved hugely and are now in line with the UK average for the first time. And more survived the difficult first few years than in most other places, which is absolutely tremendous. This is a huge positive for the county, and we will continue to help more Staffordshire people to start, grow and expand their business. Also this month, the Chief Executive and I travelled to Parliament to meet with the Home Secretary and discuss the placement of asylum seekers in Staffordshire. During a constructive meeting, we shared our experiences and the impact the current approach and system is having on communities and businesses in Staffordshire. We urged for earlier notification and discussions with the Government and Serco on new arrivals. And while here in Staffordshire we are willing to do our bit to tackle the national issue, we made the case for greater support to accommodate asylum seekers and reduce the impact on those people who live nearby. And so, colleagues, on to our next item on our agenda, which is item 4, minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 1st of March. Is it your wish that I move those as a correct record? They are moved. Agenda item 5, Staffordshire Means Back to Business, oral update brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. Well, as everyone knows, I'm the main event today in terms of politicians talking about the economy, but I believe the Chancellor is presenting to Parliament later today on some small matters that relate to this. It's going to be very interesting to see what's in the budget. I know there have been the traditional pre-briefings about that, but it's going to be very good to see what the Chancellor actually announces at 12:30 today, particularly as the Office for Budget Responsibility has reported that public sector borrowing at the start of the year has been significantly below where we expected it to be. We're in a much better position with the public finances than I think many expected or wanted to suggest would be the case. Nonetheless, we are continuing in challenging economic times. In terms of our claimant count, we have seen a continuing trend with a slight increase each month in our universal credit claimant figures, which during the last period increased from 2.7 to 2.8%. That remains well below the West Midlands and the national averages, which are at 4.8% and 3.7% respectively. And it does respect trends that we see during the course of the year. So a lot of this represents seasonal jobs ending, and the wait, in fact, for many people for the next set of seasonal jobs to come in the spring and summer. But nonetheless, we do take that very seriously, and it's something that I'll touch upon a little bit later on in my presentation. Within that, the proportion of young people claiming universal credit has increased from 4.2 to 4.4%. And that's below the national and regional averages, as it has been for some time again. So those are the statistics. In terms of the activities we're taking here in the county to drive our local economy forwards, the thing that I'd like to highlight to you today principally is the publication of our rural economic strategy. This is the counterpart to our overall economic strategy, which was published last month. The rural economic strategy is something that we consider to be extremely important in recognising that in Staffordshire we're over 80% rural by our geography, but actually more than 50% of our businesses reside in rural areas as well. So in Staffordshire, rural and economy are two words that very much go hand in hand. The strategy runs from 2023 to 2030. It focuses on 5 key priorities which are complementary to the overarching priorities that we have for our economy irrespective of geography. And those are, firstly, to support our productive land economy, principally farming, but there are other activities within that. Supporting our visitor economy, which is one of the strongest in the UK and something I'll come back to a little later in my presentation, but much of which is based in those rural areas, and certainly all of which is massively benefited by the wonderfully green and pleasant land that is Staffordshire, a very attractive place to come and be. The other priorities are the role of our rural hub towns. There are 5 of them in the county, and we want to be able to prioritise the quality of the offer in those rural hub towns. I see Mr. DeVille looking at me as he's got one of them on his doorstep. I want to speak about it in a moment. And then connectivity and access, both physical and digital, are the other key priorities within the strategy. This offers us a framework so that we can direct our policy choices and investment towards those activities that we can undertake here, but also with partners, and also encouraging private business to do the things that will help that rural economy fly. And we're very pleased that we've been able to bring that forwards. I mentioned tourism as one of the key strands of our rural economic strategy, and I'm very pleased to say that despite the inclement weather last week, we had another very successful Enjoy Staffordshire Tourism and Good Food Awards, one of the key events in the year that we organised to champion the wonderful tourism and hospitality businesses we have in the county. We had over 300 guests at the event, and it was wonderful to be able to trumpet the huge successes that we have in our visitor economy. One of the highlights there, I think it's fair to say, and some of us, such as the leader, have been lucky enough to sample this directly, is our first Michelin star restaurant in Staffordshire, which we've had since the last awards. So Upstairs by Tom Shepherd, above his parents' jewellery business in Lichfield, one of the best restaurants in the country here in Staffordshire, a first for us, but based on the strength of our food economy and the skilled chefs we have in the county, I suspect not the last. And I can think of a couple of other restaurants that maybe should be on that list. And that speaks to the quality of the offer that we have here in the county. Now, the other thing that I just wanted to mention regarding tourism and leisure is our success in being recognised nationally for the strength of the offer that we have locally, both in terms of attractions in Staffordshire, but also in terms of the support that we provide for our tourism sector. And that is that we've been invited by government to bid to become a local visitor economy partnership, which is a bit of a jargony term, but it basically means that we've been invited to apply to become one of the prime tourism agencies in the country, recognising the strength of the offer we have here, both in the sector but also in the way that we do things to support our tourism businesses. More on that to come. The recognition is great. The important thing, though, is that it comes with a greater ability to acquire funding to put into strengthening the tourism sector. So an exciting bit of news. The final thing I will just mention, and I've mentioned it before here, is our Staffordshire Jobs and Careers Service, which helps fuel the needs of our businesses who still have many, many thousands of unfilled vacancies. That careers and job service is now fully up and running and live. It has what I think is the golden link between people looking for jobs, employers, but also skills, with a team of brokers who can take an individual, match them up with a job, but if they need a skills package to be able to do it, to get them that as well. Pleased to say, colleagues, that is now up and running and something that I think will be of enormous benefit to a lot of our citizens. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, and thank you to you and your team for your continued good work on the economy. There is nobody indicating, so we're going to move on now to the Capital Programme for Schools 23-24, agenda item number 6, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and Send, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, and thank you, colleagues, as well. Really pleased to be bringing this before you today. So, as you are all aware, it is essential that we keep the schools we remain responsible for in good conditions so that we can support the delivery of high-quality teaching and learning in Staffordshire. You will see in the report that we are investing more than £43 million in schools through our capital funding. The report details the source of funding that we'll be using aligned to our corporate priorities and delivering value for money. The programme presented to Cabinet for approval uses the planned maintenance approach, which enables coordinated programme of repairs and allows resources to be targeted where they are most needed to reduce the effects of unsatisfactory premises on pupils' education. We will also see more schools benefiting from our decarbonised programme, directly contributing towards our carbon net zero goal. And that will be new boilers, insulation and other additional work. You can find the details of that actually in the report. So through our analysis of additional school places funded through basic need allocation, you will see that by 2031 we will require roughly 5,800 places for mainstream primary and additional 2,700 places for mainstream secondary education. The capital programme for schools is monitored and reviewed by corporate finance, strategic property and the school organisation team to ensure that development of new schools meet the demand for places. I'm pleased to be seeking approval to commission the building of 2 new primary schools, initially opening in Stafford and Lichfield, ready for September 2025. Those details can be found in the report, but I am pleased to say one of those will be in Burley Fields in Stafford and the other one will be a new school south of Short Butts Lane in Lichfield. Both of them will be a 2-form entry school. And the work that we do around the Capital Schools programme also enables us to make sure that the right school places are in the right areas for parents to be able to send their children through, and that enables us to make sure that parents can have that choice locally to put their send their children to their first place provision, which, as Alan mentioned, or the leader mentioned, earlier in his speech. I'm also pleased to confirm through the DFE school rebuilding programme, 4 Staffordshire schools, 3 secondary and 1 primary, have also been selected with further details in the Appendix 7. We have discussed previously using the high needs provision capital allocation to deliver across the mainstream placements with the development of resource bases as well as local availability of high needs places. This is currently being developed and further information will be available early in the summer, and I'm looking forward to bringing that to Cabinet. And that's around making sure that we can try and keep children with special educational needs, not necessarily if they are moderate learners, out of special schools, and enabling them to be more independent and working on a mainstream site. It is a detailed report, and I do thank officers for the report and the work taken place to provide the children and young people of Staffordshire with the school estate to deliver that high quality education. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Price? Councillor Jessel.
It's not so much a question, but actually, congratulations. I'm very pleased to see, and I know it probably sounds a little bit basic, but refurbishment of toilets and access to drinking water. I think it is something I can remember a long time ago when I was at school. The toilets used to be outside. The only advantage to that is they didn't smell. Oh, well, the girls didn't. I don't know about the boys. But in all honesty, joking apart, it is very, very important, you know, and one doesn't want to see pupils deliberately avoiding going to the toilet because of the condition of the facilities. So I'm pleased to see it. As I say, it's a small part, but a very essential part of the investment programme, and also access to drinking water. Again, for the same, dare I say, slightly public health reasons, I think it's very good, and I'm glad it's been recognised as important.
Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Leader. So, having done the education role myself, I know how hard it is to get this right, and that's despite the fact that we spend an enormous amount of money on our schools in Staffordshire, don't we? We are massive investors in the education of our children, but there's massive demand, and our expectations are not just to fulfil. There's a description in the paper, because it's the description that government uses of basic need allocation, which is about having a school place for a child. But we don't do this in a basic way in Staffordshire, do we? We expect very high standards in terms of the learning environments that our children live in. And I was reminded of that this morning when I had to drop my wife off at her secondary school, the new build one that we constructed a few years ago, and I found myself waiting for the gates to open, saying to her, "It does look amazing, doesn't it?" And she said, "Yeah, you know, it's a great place to work, and we have so many great schools like that, physical environments, because of the investment we're making, and things like toilets, making sure they're safe environments, that children aren't afraid to go to the loo during the day, things like that, incredibly important. Open spaces, bright spaces where children are inspired to learn. We do all of this through this programme. It's a bit dry on the page, but it's incredibly important, and we do it really well here. So, big well done to you and the team for delivering this again this year, and lucky children in the schools that are going to benefit from it.
Councillor DeVille.
Yeah, thank you. Just to endorse the words of the Deputy Leader, Chairman, great report, Councillor Price. Thank you for bringing this today. I think the important thing is, I, like other members, regularly visit schools in my area. I'm extremely proud of the schools in our area. I'm extremely proud of the work that our great teachers do. And I think this report clearly shows the emphasis that we place on the future of our children. In fact, Chairman, the first two reports that we've seen today, incredibly important. The report from the Deputy Leader earlier emphasises the importance of our rural economy. These two reports clearly show that we prioritise efforts and we prioritise investments into areas that really need it. A great report, Councillor Price. Thank you.
Before I ask you to give me the recommendations, Councillor Price, I just Councillor Jessel transported me back to my primary school days, where we did have an outside toilet, and it was freezing. Yeah, we're going in the right direction, aren't we? Councillor Price, if you give us the recommendations, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And this work that we do, I'm incredibly proud of the work the officers have done and the stuff that we do deliver as this authority. So, no, thank you for all your comments. So the recommendations are A, approves the School Capitals Programme 23-24 investment proposal set out in the supporting appendices. The Assistant Director for Commercial and Assets monitors progress and makes the necessary in-year alterations in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. C, delegates authority to the Deputy Chief Executive and Director of Corporate Services to enter into contracts for projects in the Capital Programme which has a value of £2 million or above. Other contract awards and modifications will be in accordance with the Council's procurement regulations. Thank you, Leader.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is Highways and Transport Programme 2023 to 2024, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. Councillor Williams, good news.
Yes, your leader. Good morning, everybody. Good highways are important for this council, for residents, for businesses, and for helping us to deliver our economic growth ambitions. With a road network the size of Staffordshire's, it's always going to be a costly challenge, and we do have to work with the budget available and the competing priorities for this council. However, I'm delighted to say that we're now looking to invest an extra £30 million over the next 2 years. This is on top of the £50 million annual spend that will help fund 5 major road reconstruction schemes at key locations into towns, resurfacing of 9 junction roundabouts, an extra 275,000 square metres of preventative surface treatment to preserve and extend the life of roads, and £1 million of additional work to repair highway drainage. The Highways Boost comes on top of the County Council's successful bid to secure £19.8 million through the Levelling Up Fund for improvement to roads, bus and cycle routes within the county. This extra investment will deliver major benefits in the key areas in the next 2 years, but we recognise there's always more to be done, and we continue to lobby central government for funding to keep Staffordshire roads in the condition we expect and ensure local communities and businesses can feel the benefits of an improved network. The key schemes planned include £1 million for the A5127 on the Birmingham Road, Lichfield, £300,000 for the A34, A449 Queensway roundabout, part of Wolverhampton Road, £500,000 for the A5121 Clay Mills, Burton, £2.5 million for the A5121 Derby Road, Burton, and £900,000 for the A513 stroke B5493 Upper Gungate, Aldergate, Tamworth. On road surface dressing, a list of roads proposed for the surface treatment for 2023-24 is in Appendix 1 of the Cabinet paper. There is a further 260,000 square metres of roads will be brought forward from the 24 to 25 preventative treatment programme, which are currently being visited to check whether they are still in a condition suitable for this type of treatment, and will then be further assessed by RMS, the specialist contractor that carries out the work on our behalf. The candidate sites for the 2024 programme are attached in a spreadsheet entitled the Preventative Carriageway Master Plan, but for the reasons described above, these can't be considered to be the final programme, as there is a number of considerations such as budget, deferred sites, suitability for treatment, and wider issues such as long-term coordination that have to be worked through to reach the final programme. Due to the Project Gigabit digital infrastructure, to suppose that works to footways are going to be suspended for the next 2 years to minimise the risk of being dug up soon after resurfacing. We've spoken to the Project Gigabit team to try and find out if there are any areas where work is unlikely and hence this risk is low, but it appears that the alternative telecoms providers could seek to build networks anywhere across the county with little notice. In locations where not commercially viable, the programme of supported investment could also see the remaining areas dug up. Apart from the small amount of funding to complete sites that were prepared in this financial year, there is no programme on footway works proposed. Just as an update on that, there are now 17 fibre companies who are now deciding they wanting to come into Staffordshire. Finally, on the drainage dig downs, we have currently only identified the major sites for drainage works, which is in the Cabinet paper, Croft Farm Development and Shay Lane Culvert. Although we have a long list of sites where we are aware of drainage issues, these need to be reprioritised and be given an initial cost estimate before the programme is put forward for approval. The drainage programme can often be affected by sudden collapses of system, such as the Shay Lane culvert, and hence does continually evolve throughout the year. The intention is that we will provide this programme and publish it on the website once available. For members' information, we're also looking at innovative methods for weed control and for repairing lower category defects, working with companies and investigating technologies to allow for a greater reduction in the current work stack. Following the recent legal contractual agreement with our provider AMI, the provision of the Highways Transformation Programme is being embedded with both staff and members, and the new methods of working within the County Council having an even greater level of control and audit, which includes the provision of a dedicated website, social media information outlet, ensuring both the public and members remain informed and updated regularly and appropriately. Happy to take any question before moving the paper, Chairman. Leader.
Any questions or observations for Councillor Williams? Councillor Parry.
And this is a really important report this morning, isn't it? Because whilst I guess lots of people see highways investment in terms of the micro stuff, the things that affects the way we drive around and we see the condition of roads, etc. This really explains the bigger strategic stuff that's really important to address the concerns and opportunities within the county. So addressing congestion and appropriate route management, and also investing in opportunities to attract new investment in our economy. So this is doing the big stuff as well as the things which affect everybody's daily lives. And it's good that I think that we, in a sense, reveal this and highlight this, that the task that we have as a cabinet is not just about filling in potholes. It is a much, much bigger area of concern and opportunity for the county that will benefit everyone because we'll get better roads, we get better infrastructure, and we get an attractive locality that means that people bring investment into Staffordshire, and we unlock sites, etc. So a really important, terrific report, and it shows the detail in there that sits behind all of this as to where all that investment's going. So an excellent report, and I would encourage people to take a closer look at this.
Councillor DeVille.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It is an excellent report, and you're right, Mr. Parry. This really addresses and emphasises the big stuff that we're doing, the capital projects. It's important that we all recognise, though, Chairman, that at the same time we're looking closely at better ways of maintaining our highways, of being more efficient, of getting better value for money, and of repairing more defects quicker and getting them right first time. So whilst this is high level, I think it's essential that we do continue the work that people see. People see it every day, every time they get in the car and drive to the shops, to doctor's appointments, to work. Everyone uses our roads. So whilst the last report that Mr. Price bought, I think we emphasised then that we're looking after people who need it most, looking after the well-being and the future of our children. This report, we're looking after everyone in the county. Everyone uses our roads. So whilst it's big picture stuff, and that's massively important, we've also absolutely got to keep our fingers on the pulse with regard to the everyday operational stuff. We need to do that better, we need to do it more efficiently, and we need to get greater value for money. By doing that, then all of our taxpayers out in Staffordshire see those benefits, feel those benefits, and enjoy the benefits. So we keep our eye on the big picture, but we also absolutely, Chairman, look at the operational detail around this to provide excellent roads, which then present us with the economic opportunities that Mr. Parry mentioned and the Deputy Leader mentioned earlier. Companies will come to Staffordshire if the infrastructure is there. The infrastructure is there, but we've absolutely got to hone on operationally to improve the quality of our roads. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for this report. It's quite a big report, isn't it? And it's quite detailed, and that's because these operations are complex in nature. Everyone thinks that they're an expert in highways engineering because they drive over the roads. But as this paper goes some way to demonstrate, the devil is in the detail. And the most important detail in this, for me, and the one that I want to draw out, is the fact that this is a 2-year programme. We know that for many years we have suffered from short-term funding decisions regarding highways, whereas the maintenance of our highways asset and making sure that our roads are to the standard that we want is a long-term endeavour, and we need to plan when we're doing these big programmes that involve digging up and replacing entire roads and doing other major works. We need to plan them so that we can do them efficiently, we can do them in a way that minimises disruption, or means that disruption happens at the time that's the least worst time for people in an area. What we have done here, what you and your team have done is, through using the resources that Staffordshire County Council itself can generate through our taxpayers, is to create a 2-year programme. That's something that I hope we will be able to continue to do in years to come. It means that we can continue rolling with these activities rather than the stop-start whilst we wait to find out how much money is coming from government. But as there is a budget today, and I believe the Chancellor is always open to last-minute suggestions from people, I do hope that there might be a bit of further investment in our highways. We are ready to receive further investment. We do plan ahead in terms of schemes that we can deliver if government chooses to grant us some further money to do so. So I hope that might happen. It's just my suggestion to go in the box. And yes, I will keep my fingers crossed that might happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor White. Now, I think we're getting hints of the government announcing a tranche of money to go into highways, perhaps as much as £200 million. But I just want to manage people's expectations who might be watching this. £200 million, when it's divided across all the highways authorities across England, actually probably only works out to be a couple of million for Staffordshire, maybe a bit more than that, but not a lot more. When government announces big sums for local authorities, they sound big, but once they're divided by the 150-odd upper-tier local authorities, it doesn't actually work out to be quite that much on the ground. So whilst we would welcome that, and we would welcome any additional investment the government is choosing to put in, we do need to remind ourselves that the government took quite a bit of investment from us only a couple of years ago. I think it was around the £10 million mark. So putting some back is good, but it's not going to solve all our problems for potholes. But it will be efficiently spent. I think that's the important point. We will spend it efficiently. We will make sure it goes into potholes. It is likely to have strings attached to it, but it is a welcome addition in any event. But I will go back to previous appeals that I've made, which is, oh, dear government, please give us consistent funding over a period of time so that we can plan. I think that's my overall message. Councillor Williams, you've heard the comments, all positive, which is really great news. I look forward to seeing fantastic delivery on the ground. I know that there's a team of 3 of you around the cabinet table, the transformation team, Councillor DeVille, Councillor White and yourself, who are on this, making sure that we are delivering efficiently for the people of Staffordshire. And I hope that we'll be able to see some significant improvements in the highways over the next coming months and years. So, Councillor Williams, nobody else has indicated to speak, so we're back with you to sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Very, very happy to get some positive feedback for highways. It's not very often, but it is a real bonus. Well, you usually do, Leader, but thank you for that. It is a lot of work, and I have to say I appreciate the work of Darryl, James and the team that have done it from their side, as well as the community highway teams who we are developing these plans with. And it's really important that we bring our teams on with us to ensure that we can get the correct delivery. Therefore, I'm going to recommend to Cabinet the 4 parts are: Cabinet considers the report and approves the Highways and Transport Capital Investment Proposal, set out in the supporting appendices, noting that at the time of writing, the allocations for the Department of Transport have not been provided as yet. approves the additional investment of £20 million by the County Council into highways maintenance to be delivered over the next 2 financial years, were 23-24 and 24-25, which when put together with the already approved £5 million each year to support minor capital maintenance, makes a total investment of £30 million over the next 2 financial years. And I thank the members for finances for allowing that to happen. Approves the progression of the programme of developer-funded S278, S111 highways improvement projects and delegates authority to the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills to agree the details of the works, agreements and authorise the contracts for works to be entered into. And D, the Assistant Director for Highways and the Built County monitors progress over the overall programme and is given delegated authority to make any in-year alterations and additions to the programme in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transportation. I so submit, Chairman.
You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that is unanimous and delightful. Agenda item number 8 is Mental Health and Mental Wellbeing Strategy 23 to 28. Whilst highways is important, and it always is important, I think the health and well-being of the people we look after is as important. And I'm really pleased that you brought this today, Councillor Jessel, and I'll be very interested to hear your summation of the report that you're bringing to Cabinet this morning.
Thank you very much, Leader. And you quite rightly refer to mental health and well-being. And I think that's something that's really important, that actually it's overall well-being. It's not just people's mental health, it's their physical health, because the one contributes to the other and vice versa. This report and the strategy replaces the previous one, which was Mental Health is Everybody's Business. It's involved a tremendous amount of input from carers, from people of all age groups, from the NHS, to mental health professionals, local communities, and also it incorporates comments from the Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So it encompasses a tremendous amount of input. And one of the key messages that came through to people is that there's so much information out there, it's difficult to know where to start to access it. So it's helping people to help themselves in a way, how to access that support and information, through to people with mild and moderate mental health conditions, to those who have a serious mental health problem, to help and support them live as fulfilling and active life as we possibly can. So this report sets out some key outcomes, because at the end of the day, that's what's important, is what difference is it going to make to people. It will help people to help themselves, that's access to that information, both in terms of their physical and mental well-being. Minimise medicalisation. I read an article in the Telegraph yesterday where young people, the 5 to 16-year-olds in France, are now being prescribed a whole range of antidepressants, antipsychotics, and now it's the highest proportion of young people in Europe. That is not the way to go. It just masks the symptoms but doesn't address the root cause. And I think that is something both for young people and for adults, that medicalisation has its place, but it shouldn't be the first port of call. And that is something that this document recognises. Promoting independence, particularly for those who need ongoing mental health support, that they can access it rapidly, as close to home as possible, and as I say, that they can live those active and fulfilling lives. Build and use community capacity, and I do have to thank my colleague Councillor Wilson for all the work she's doing in supporting communities, because it is important. It's that essential building block, so people in the community can be supported. and to continue to co-produce and support these services. It is vital that we get that input from that wide range of professionals and users of services, and also to encourage and support our workforce. We are a large employer, and we need to ensure that our own workforce maintain their mental well-being, and that we help them to grow their skills so that they can perform their roles in a better way. And of course, there is a role for technology, you know, whether it's a help app or equipment, and we need to understand, recognise and invest in those technologies where they will help to deliver this strategy. Now, this strategy, the delivery of the action plan will be monitored by the Health and Wellbeing Board, and it is anticipated that the action plan will be co-produced and available for June 2023. That is going to be an essential piece of that work, and there is a new framework that Councillor Sutton, as Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, has ensured that there is a structured approach to monitoring the delivery of the action plan and the delivery of those outcomes. The Integrated Care Board will consider this strategy, because it is a joint one with the NHS via their normal governance processes, and I understood that that was going to be by the end of March. I have just been informed by our scrutiny manager that that may be a bit delayed. But at the end of the day, I don't anticipate any problems, but it is important that they formally approve this strategy. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Chairman, but I will move the recommendations at a later point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel. I think it's appropriate to bring Councillor Sutton in as the Chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and Councillor Jessel. Thank you very much for presenting that report. I think this strategy fits in with our strategy on strategies, in the fact that it's easy to read. It says what it is going to do, what it says, and he's not going to be used as potentially a doorstop, because it's endless pages. But yes, in relation to the Health and Wellbeing Board, the strategy came to the Health and Wellbeing Board. We had opportunity to discuss it, make comment on it, and as Councillor Jessel said, the action plan will be something that we will monitor. Good mental health is one of the 4 priorities of the Health and Wellbeing Board, all of which we have set. We have sponsors and leads for to drive those forward across the whole of Staffordshire, both from all parties, all partner perspective, and not just what the county council is trying to achieve. But going actually into the strategy itself, I think I just want to emphasise just one or two things, and nobody will be surprised if I talk about where this references children and young people. And the first point I wanted to make is that this strategy is actually across the ages. It's not trying to divide an issue for children and an issue for adults separately. And as we can see, one of the things that impacts on children is that around 1 in 4 children aged 11 to 12 have an emotional well-being issue. And for 5 to 16-year-olds, 1 in 10 have a diagnosed mental health condition. So I think it is absolutely essential that we include, children and young people within this strategy. And the outcomes, outcome 2, that people have access to services when needed, talks about improving access for children and young people for their emotional health and well-being, and particularly outcome 6, he emphasises to having more integrated, good quality services for young people, and focus on achieving independence as they go into adulthood. So, absolutely, these are outcomes that, as a you know, as a partnership across Staffordshire, that we can help to promote, and through the Health and Wellbeing Board, amongst others, we can monitor how this strategy is developing and whether those outcomes start to come to fruition. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Williams and Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Jessel for bringing this strategy to us. I think it's a great strategy. It's one of the most important things that we have for ourselves and our public is out there. I watched a programme last night, a Gogglebox 10 year on, and during that the second lockdown was announced, and the feeling and emotion that was shown by some of the people on that programme showed how much people's mental health was affected by COVID, and I think that is something that is still going on. I think the changes in the way that we live our lives and the fact that children are at home more and playing more on computers rather than being out is more than that definitely what we used to do, is something that is there, and I think mental health is absolutely critical in ensuring that people get the best quality of life they can. And realistically, I think that thing, one of the biggest ones in here, is that self-help part, that's personal resilience and learning how to help yourself cope with mental health and different things that happen to you is absolutely paramount to people being able to go forward. But obviously for those who need it, this strategy also puts in place things that will actually help them and support them. And as such, I'd also like to pay tribute to Councillor Anne Edgeler, who is our current ambassador for mental health, who absolutely continues to do this. And in my previous employment, I was also trained in different parts of mental health, Mindkind and different things. So I really think this is a really positive strategy that's the right type of thing, and it encompasses both the technological part but also that hand-to-hand and personal approach, and I think it's a triumph. Thank you.
Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Leader. Good mental health. Where do we start? I think we have to embrace this. Everybody needs to embrace this. This is part of community fabrication in terms of resilient communities and resilient individuals that live within those communities. I welcome this report. I think Staffordshire's mental health is a priority that we need to take on board. But we also need to take on board from a wider perspective, such as the work that Victoria is doing with her portfolio in terms of communities, in terms of providing parish councils, the good work that's gone into that so far as using exemplar communities for parish councils to get involved with their Staffordshire Parish Councils Association, which is geared up to provide more information to parish councils and to communicate that down onto the ground through promotion of parish council well-being strategies themselves, so we can actually push that out to the wider communities, because that's very close to the ground for those that are lucky enough to have parish councils. And I say lucky enough because it is lucky enough because they are the people in contact with people very in a direct manner. So if we can help to roll out our strategy to include things like communities and parish councils, we can take that holistic approach that it's everybody's business for mental health. And this strategy goes a long way to referring to that feeling of imparting confidence and control in people's lives, because they haven't got those close communities that they've enjoyed in the past, being able to support each other. There isn't one easy answer to this, Leader, that we need to look at things that help and empower and equip people to be able to look for things that are applicable to them, and to look for things that are not a waste of time, but empowering people to look, well, I can find this is what's available. I feel empowered, I feel better control of my life because I've been able to do that myself, rather than somebody hand-feeding a strategy which, in all fairness, probably won't have the effectiveness of somebody seeking out their own mental health solution. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Northcott. I'm struck by how much life has changed over the past sort of 40 years. I remember as a child, I'd spend nearly all my time out of the house. I'd come in for two reasons, something to eat and something to drink, bomb into the house, thirsty, straight back out again. But times have changed, and these strategies recognise the fact that the way children are brought up has changed dramatically. But it's also striking how much of our effort and how many of the councillors around this table are really geared towards making sure that people's mental health is actually as good as it can be. One of the major ways of avoiding mental health trouble is having a good job. Councillor White is dedicated to ensuring that people have a good job across the county. Making sure that people have got connection to their community and connection to their neighbours. Councillor Wilson's role is about creating communities and helping communities to build from where they are now to where they could be in the future. Having a good education and a good start in life. Councillor Price spends his time making sure that our education is as good as it can be. And then with our district and borough partners, making sure that people have got things to do, places to go out and exercise through the role that they play at the district and borough level. There's a lot that local authorities do which is striving to make sure that people have good mental health. This strategy brings it all together, and I think it articulates it very, very neatly. So, Councillor Jessel, thank you for the strategy. I'd ask you to just sum up in a few words and then give us the recommendations, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think you've summed it up very well. I was going to make the point that we're all involved in this, and I think the question and the comments that have been made this morning identify that we all see this as a key element in everybody's life. I don't really think I need to say anything else. The proof of the pudding will be in the compilation of an action plan and the delivery of that action plan. As Councillor Sutton said, it's deliberately short and succinct. I have a personal aversion to 70, 80-page documents that actually would make your mental health fade just going through it. This is a fresh approach, something that people can get to grips with, but at the end of the day, that proof of the pudding is what changes and how that improves people's lives. And that's where the effort will now be put into. So at that, Chairman, I will recommend to Cabinet that they approve the proposed joint mental health and wellbeing strategy, Good Mental Health in Staffordshire 2023 to 28, and B, endorse the proposal for the Health and Wellbeing Board to monitor delivery of the associated action plan. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel. All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. Moving on to the agenda item number 9, Our People's Strategy 2023 and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, the people who work here at Staffordshire County Council are absolutely vital to the efficient operation of the organisation. And what we want to do is make sure we're attracting the best people to come and work in Staffordshire. The Chief Executive and I, once a month, do our induction with the new staff. And it's striking to see how enthusiastic they are about coming to work for Staffordshire. And part of the reason that why they have this enthusiasm is because our people strategy is very clearly articulated, and our determination to make sure our people succeed and thrive within this organisation is set out. This refreshed people strategy for 23 to 27 is set out in Appendix 1, and it builds on the work we've already delivered to date. It provides a planned approach to ensuring our workforce is ready to meet the key challenges the Council faces over the next 4 years, and the strategy sets out 23 commitments under 4 pillars to shape a culture that supports the delivery of the Council's strategic plan, inspires innovation and allows the organisation to perform at its best for the people of Staffordshire. Now, I know there's going to be sucking of air through teeth when you hear of 23 commitments and 4 pillars. But actually, the 4 pillars are pretty clear, and I think that's where we need to focus our attention. Those 4 pillars are attracting and keeping, attracting and keeping talented people, promoting a positive work environment, developing skills for now and the future, and developing leaders for now and the future. If we have a good organisation with leaders, then more people will want to come and work here. And it's quite a competitive environment in the local government sector. People can choose to work wherever they like, there are probably more job openings than there are people available to fill them. So it's important that we make ourselves and present ourselves as an employer of choice. The way we intend to achieve that, the way we've arrived at our refresh strategy is that we've looked at insight and performance data, making sure we're aligned to our key priorities. We've used the Chartered Institute of Personal and Development People Impact Tool. We've got our employee net promoter score surveys, our directorate input and priorities, the council strategic plan, employee leadership feedback, and also political leadership, and also employee demographics. So a lot has got into coming up with this Refresh People strategy. And so I hope that you recognise it for what it is and endeavour to make sure we've got the best people, we attract the best people, we retain the best people, and people understand where they fit in within the organisation. As I say, every month the Chief Executive and I do our induction, and I'm really struck by how great the people are that are coming to work for Staffordshire County Council. I'm also struck by the number of returners that we have. They go out, try it elsewhere, decide it's not as good as here, and they come back to work for Staffordshire, which I think is a huge tribute to us all. So if I've got no questions, I have Councillor Tagg.
It's not a question, Leader, it's a comment really. I'm really pleased to see within this document and in some of the photos celebrating the staff at the recycling centres. Of course, we're celebrating a year now that since it's come back in-house. And I think it's those three areas of values which you talk about, ACE, which is ambition, courageousness and empowering. We've put that into practice in those sites, and we're seeing the dividends. And anybody that goes on the council's website will see the guys in their orange vis jackets, do not mess with us type of approach with the sunglasses on. It just shows how they're now, since they've come in-house, working as a team, working for the people of Staffordshire, we're improving those sites, and that's really putting this strategy into practice. Thank you.
I'm glad you've mentioned the three gentlemen that are on or four gentlemen on the screensavers. What a handsome bunch, really, that we've got at the household waste recycling centres. They're on our website, they're on our screensaver, and just rejoice in the fact that we brought that back in-house and people are finding that absolutely brilliant. And that's down to our people. They were absolutely delighted to be brought back in-house, and that's a great tribute to Mr Ayres and his team for making that happen. Councillor Jessel and Councillor DeVille.
Yes, I think this is an excellent report and really clearly sets out how important our people, our employees are. We can't perform any services to any of the members of the public without those dedicated professional people working for us at all levels. And I think, and I'll give a little bit of plug for the social care workforce strategy that we've developed with partners, with private care providers, with the NHS, which sits very well under this overall strategy, and I think identifies that as an organisation we recognise the importance of our employees, we recognise the competitive market that we are in, and unlike some authorities that just moan about lack of resources, we actually knuckle down and do something about it. So I think it's really important and I very much support it.
Councillor DeVille and Councillor Parry.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Totally agree with Councillor Jessel's comments, Chairman. Another excellent report. And there's a common denominator today, colleagues, isn't there? People. All of these reports have looked at delivering positive outcomes for the people of Staffordshire, making their lives better. These positive outcomes won't be delivered by shiny new buildings or equipment. They'll be delivered by our people. They're our greatest asset, and this report is massively important in that it shows the importance we place on further development of our people. And it's our people, such as the great teachers that we've got, the great health workers that we've got that are out every day, and the people who've been up in the heights of the Staffordshire moorlands in the last week, Chairman, digging out cars out of the snow, gritting our roads and keeping us safe at all hours. It's our people that will deliver these benefits, and this report absolutely and rightly shows the emphasis that we place on the future well-being and development of our people. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Parry.
Yeah, it's a great plan, it's a great strategy. The thing I just wanted to highlight, whilst it's in here, it doesn't reach the sort of front page highlights of this report. which is about inclusion, diversity and equality. And I think we can reassure people that that is very much part of our people strategy here, that we encourage people from all backgrounds, whether that's gender, race, disability, sexual orientation, religious belief, that you will be welcomed, supported and encouraged here in Staffordshire to both apply and to work here. Obviously, you know, if we look at the data of our employers here in Staffordshire, it wouldn't necessarily reflect, in a sense, the community at large. And I think we need to perhaps work a little bit harder at that, and in working out what the barriers might be to people joining the organisation and what we can do about that. But I do know that that is actually embedded in this anyway. I do know that that's an intent in this, and I just wanted to highlight that that intent exists and that we are very much supportive as an organisation which is inclusive and fair.
Thank you for highlighting that, Councillor Parry. I mean, it is so ingrained in the way we do things that sometimes it's taken for granted, and we are wrong to take it for granted. It's an important point to raise, and it's an important thing that we continue to strive for, and making sure that people are aware of that is absolutely vital. Colleagues, thank you very much indeed for your comments. I've got 4 recommendations for you. First, that you acknowledge the key achievements from the previous people strategy. Second, you note the evidence-based approach adopted in the development of the strategy. Third, endorse the "we will" commitments against the 4 pillars in the strategy. And finally, of course, you approve the strategy. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Moving forward then to the Staffordshire County Council Local Flood Risk Management Strategy, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. And I know there's very, very many people are keen to hear about this, Councillor Tagg, and I'm delighted you're able to bring this morning. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. I think this goes along in the same vein as what Mr DeVille talked about, positive reports that really affect and help local people. Our county has experienced over at least 15 significant storm events since 2000, with 9 of those events occurring between 2018 and 2022. These events have highlighted the need for an updated local flood risk management strategy, which takes into account the lessons learned from past flooding incidents in the county and the national policy changes. The Environment Agency has published their updated National Flood and Coastal Erosion Management Strategy, which sets out its vision for the climate resilient places and for infrastructure and growth to be resilient for the future. In response, we are revising our emerging draft strategy to align to this vision, ensure that our county is prepared for future flood events. The draft strategy before us today is focused, succinct and aimed to be resident friendly. It contains 5 objectives about how we intend to manage flood risk with others, and also an action plan at the end. It's particularly focused on community engagement and innovation. Also includes a list of flood alleviation schemes which we are getting externally funded for, and that will be published as a live updated list on the Council's website. We understand the importance of engaging with the wider community and have initiated a live consultation on the draft strategy, which is set to end on the 20th of March. We're confident that our revised flood risk management strategy will help us to better prepare for future flood events and protect our county's residents and infrastructure. Therefore, we recommend you approve this today as a draft strategy, and that it be finally signed off by the Director sitting next to me, Darryl, in consultation with myself once the consultation changes and we can make any amendments to that. And finally, the government announced in January that they've confirmed plans to ensure that new sustainable drainage systems, known as SUDS, will be adopted under Schedule 3 of the Flood Waste Management Act 2010, with the County Council likely to become the SUDS approval body, meaning we would need to approve, adopt and maintain those sustainable drainage for new developments across the county. It isn't yet clear whether this will also include a retrospective adoption, which could be a big issue because of the massive schemes that have taken place over the years, and this would require, I think, significant funding, so we're waiting for the government to give updates on that as we go forward. Therefore, one of the recommendations in the report, Leader, is that the strategy be revised when necessary to take into account those changes that will come from that SUDS issue. And also, I think this should be a live strategy and continually updated as well as we go along and meet the challenges which are of climate change as it affects our county. I'd like to thank our flood risk management team for the work that they've done putting the strategy together, and also for the partners across the county, such as Staff's Fire and Rescue in our districts and boroughs, who work with our staff to ensure that when flooding incidents happen, you know, the public have somewhere to go to, somewhere to get help, and that we try to alleviate those through applying for funding for schemes that will alleviate them in the long term. So I will end there and move the recommendations in a moment, but take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Tagg, for bringing this, and I really welcome it. It's interesting to see on the page that says our vision, there's a picture of the Sandon Road, which is in my particular division, and you can see some wheelie bins floating down the main street. I have to say, there is a scheme now in place, but without the support of the lead flood authority, which is ourselves, collaboratively working with Severn Trent Water and the Environment Agency, that scheme may not have got off the ground. So I just wanted to thank your officers for the work that you've done to support me with this, as you have done in other areas across the county. This particular flooding issue has been going on now for, well, we've got photos dating back about 110 years. So if I, in my small term within the county council and with the full support that I've had from the county council, deliver some flood risk management in that area, it will be a win-win for the local residents. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing this to us, and I really, really welcome it. So thank you.
Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Leader. I particularly want to pay thanks to Councillor Tagg and his officers for bringing this forward. I think this being a live document going forward will help us to manage flooding in our area. It's a lot easier to deal with flooding as a preamble than it is to deal with flooding that's taken place. And I think whether or not you accept that there is climate change affecting us more and more, it's important to establish that it's going to be dealt with, and there's going to be strategy like this in place to inform borough councils and district councils with their local plan that they need to plan for a different future if we're going to be getting those effects of climate change and go to meet that. So I welcome this wholeheartedly and look forward to how it's rolled out in the future. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Leader. First of all, I'd also like to thank the highways, the drainage team, because obviously they work very closely many times with the highways people, and as members would know, that water is the biggest cause of damage to roads. So it's going to be really important to continue to work with Councillor Tagg and his team going into the future to ensure that we can keep the water off the roads, make sure that drainage is maintained, and that will not only save us money and damages to our roads, but also make a more effective road network for our residents. So looking forward to it and very happy with this report. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg, the leader's about to go rogue here and ask a random question. So I've noticed over the past 20 years of doing leafleting that people's front gardens have changed beyond recognition. They used to be patches of grass and you'd walk around them. So you'd do, to do a particular area, you'd be walking 10 miles. And now they are all block paved or tarmacked, which runs off straight into the drains, which then causes the flash flooding issues, which then leads to the flooding in people's houses that they complain about. And I'm just wondering, here we go, whether or not there's something we could do with the local planning authorities about people's sort of overall desire to tarmac everything over. Because there was quite a lot of, I should imagine there's quite a lot of water absorbed by the lawns in the old patches of grass in some areas in the old days, which now just sloshes straight into the road. And one of the areas where I get a regular complaint is because the entire road is now got cars effectively what were in the front garden on block paving, and the poor old person at the bottom of the street, this is in Faisley, finds themselves in the recipient of a tidal wave of water that comes down it. And I just wonder if there's something we could do around that. I've got a couple of people indicating, because I think I've just touched a nerve. So Councillor Jessel and Councillor Parry, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Taggart. I'm so sorry for doing that to you, because I should really have warned you that it was coming. But as I was listening to this, I thought, well, this is an issue.
I think some years ago, and I stand to be corrected, there was legislation, part of the planning regulations, that new driveways and resurfacing should be with a permeable material. The problem is, I don't believe it's ever really been effectively enforced. But I stand to be corrected, but I think within the planning rules there is that option.
Councillor Parry and then Councillor Tagg.
I agree, and I think it's something that we could put pressure on, or should put pressure on the planning system, because if you were to build a new dwelling, one of the criteria would be in terms of car parking allocation. There's a ratio there, isn't there? There's a kind of some maths. I think something similar about land drainage on a property should be present, and also the responsibilities of people with land, agricultural land or otherwise, to ensure that the drainage systems upon their land are up to it. But I do think this thing about dwellings, because when you aggregate it, it's quite a lot of houses that are no longer have those grass lawns and flower beds or whatever that did drain. I just blame Alan Titchmarsh, actually.
The biggest offence is the fake grass. But Councillor Tagg, sorry to do that to you.
No, it's fine. I think, as Councillor Jessel pointed out, there are already some controls within the planning system for that, such as notifications of the local authority using permeable materials. But I think you've hit the nail on the head, so to speak, there, Leader, because as you're aware, we are working together through the Leaders Board, both county and districts, to align local plans. And I think something about that going in there about more controls over that, because you're quite right, you know, depending on the gradient of the road, the houses at the bottom, again, the problem there isn't created by the soakaways, etc., and that used to be there through grass and gardens being removed for driveways. So, very good point. Councillor Price, thank you for your comments. I think we make very good use in this county of the flood levy money that comes in, which has helped the scheme in your division, and we'll continue to do that. I think, you know, more often than not, we get out more than we put into the flood levy, which is really important for our schemes across the county. We contribute with the rest of the authorities across the West and East Midlands, which every year, and we do, as I say, get back a lot of that money, which we can then use for schemes for our residents. Councillor Northcott is right. Obviously, climate change is an impact on this, but we can have an impact ourselves locally by, as we bring nature back, as we start planting trees, we can actually do that in a way that relieves flooding issues further downstream, or etc. And our team are looking into that quite closely and aligning that with the other things we do in our climate change carbon reduction agenda. So I will move now to the recommendations, Leader, if I could. Just find them. A, that we approve the draft local flood risk management strategy. B, approve the accompanying documents, habitat risk assessments and strategic environment assessments. C, approve that the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills, in consultation with myself as Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, sign off any necessary changes to the published final version. A and B, assuming no significant changes, please see point 11 in reasons for recommendation, close brackets. And D, approve that strategy is revised again when implementation of Schedule 3 of the Flood Water Management Act 2010 makes Staffordshire County Council the SUDS approved body responsible for approval, adoption, maintenance and management of sustainable drainage systems. It takes into account this. See point 12 for the reason for recommendation. I so move.
Congratulations getting through those recommendations. They were a bit clunky, weren't they? You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Excellent. Moving then to agenda item number 11, which is the forward plan of key decisions. The following in April: Staffordshire Better Care Fund 2022 to 2024, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Then in private in April, Staffordshire PSN current contract exit strategy and new contract, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille. Moving forward to May, Corporate Delivery Plan 23-24, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finances and Resources, Councillor Parry. Again in May, Household Waste Recycling Centres, consultation, feedback, policy changes, reuse and HWRC network improvements to date, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, Climate and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Again in May, in public, Living My Best Life, a strategy for disabled and neurodivergent people in Staffordshire 23-28, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton, and the Cabinet Member for Education and Send, Councillor Price, and the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Testing to destruction, the theory that you can't get enough of a good thing. Moving then to June, in public, Integrated Performance Outturn Report 22-23, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry, and the Leader of the Council, Councillor White. Again in June, Joint Coroners Service Legal Framework and Financial Protocol, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson. And finally in June, Maintenance and Minor Works Framework, brought to you by Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille. That is the forward plan. Move now to agenda item number 12, exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraph of Part 1, Schedule 12A, as amended of the Local Government Act 1972, indicated below.